is. And what am I doing? Why is this fucking up now? Sorry, I got interrupted there briefly. I don't usually make comments about this kind of stuff. I do a little bit of stuff about politics sometimes, but most of the time I stick to my lane of history and society. Obviously, if you delve into society, you're probably going to touch on politics every once in a while, so I guess this is part of that technically. Yeah. How do I say this about the political situation in the United States? Obviously, there was the shooting in Colorado. There was the three kids that were injured as a result of what went on there. I haven't heard much about motives on that one. I think a couple months ago there was some political assassination. I can't remember if they were from Michigan or not. There was that. There is what's going on in Nepal now. If you guys stayed up to date on Nepal, they've apparently started to drag government officials out into the streets. There's a couple clips of that kind of circulating the internet. And it's overall it's really chaotic right now. And I hesitate to say, but I don't think that really anybody is stable anymore. I don't think there is like a good place where you're like, yeah, let's go there, we'll be okay. Except maybe New Zealand, but even New Zealand had that shooting like 10 years ago or whatever. So maybe not New Zealand. But yeah, there's and I really wanted to say something about it, especially the whole Charlie Kirk situation, because Charlie Kirk, like, that was one of the most gruesome deaths I think I've ever seen of somebody that not that I really felt like I knew. I don't really feel like I didn't feel like I knew him, but like that better. What am I trying to say here? Not that I felt that I knew the guy, but I knew of him more intimately than just, I kind of know about his existence, right? Like, I had seen shorts of him every once in a while, right? Like, it's different when you actually know of the leader, right? If you were to say, like, tomorrow, like, Putin gets assassinated, and then suddenly there's recordings circulating the internet of him getting his, like, face blown off, that would be, for lack of a better term, like, traumatizing, right? And hold on a minute. It's, how do I say this? It's not that it's a unique time in American history, but I think it's really unique in that there's a lot of justification floating around there. And I I'm not the kind of person who typically, like I said, makes comments about this. I really try to draw the line at like history, right? Like stay in the history. Talk about society. Talk about the health of human beings, right? Talk about the mental health of human beings. Talk about what we're missing in the modern world, because countries, nations, states, even politics, it's on a real note, it's not that important. But this time I feel like I have to say something. And the reason why I feel like I have to say something about this, even though I mostly stick to history, like I said, and there is another short I'm working on, so please stay tuned for that. I've just been really busy because I am still working at the same time as doing this. Obviously, this is not very successful channel right now. But I was not expecting the gruesome death that I actually saw. And I was expecting, at least for the time, because it's been less than 24 hours now, I think, since they announced that he passed. Actually, I think it's been less than 12 hours since they announced he passed, which was, I think, at 3 or 4 p.m. today was when they announced that he had passed away, which we all knew if you had seen the video. And I wouldn't recommend looking it up, but of course you're going to, just by me saying that. It's pretty gruesome. And I really expected a lot of people to, come out and say, hey, like, this isn't acceptable and stuff. And you have that. You have, like, the TikTokers and the influencers and a couple of the other people out there, right, that, say, hey, we shouldn't be violent or whatever. But they have the most just stone cold face you've ever seen. And the most, like, that's the fakest kindness I think I've ever seen anybody do when they talk about political violence and stuff. A lot of them just stone cold face, right? There is like not an emotion on their body. And they even say, oh yeah, I literally vomited earlier. Oh, I was crying when I learned. I said, I don't believe you. Right? Just because, like, at a certain point, I'm going to try to keep this to an hour, by the way, because I know it's really, really late. I got back late. I'll try to keep this to an hour if you guys are watching, whoever is. But I wasn't expecting to see somebody that I am very well aware of like that. It's different when you say, oh, this random, like, politician that you've never heard of from a small district in Arizona got shot up, right? And you hear about it, but you don't see anything about it. It's different when you hear about a school shooting, right? Which, no, all of them are terrible. But you hear about the school shooting, and then they show you a couple pictures of what happened, or a couple of pictures of, like, the perpetrators or the victims, maybe, like from 5 years ago, or the kid photos, you're like, oh, that person passed away. It's different seeing it, right? Like looking and seeing a person who's like answering, I think it was a question about mass shootings, which is ironic. And then suddenly his neck opens, right? He gets shot and his neck opens and he falls over, and that hit his carotid artery for sure. Like, he was probably dead within a minute at most, probably less than that. Less than a minute he was dead, just because of how quickly his brain lost blood and lost all connection. And I'm hoping his death was quick. I'm hoping he passed out immediately, right, and he didn't experience any sort of pain when he passed away, and he just didn't even fathom what had happened. I'm hoping that's what happened, and it kind of looks like that's what happened. So I'm really praying that that's, like, obviously I will never be able to know, but that because I do believe in an afterlife, that, unfortunate as it might be, as disappointed as he probably is that he's not able to be there for his kids now, that he's actually still, like, he didn't feel much before he was just gone. That's the only thing I could hope for. It was still like a violent and gruesome death. And I heard rumors. that somebody said that the person who did it had a long iron, which is just an Americanism for he had a long rifle. 200 yards, I think, is what I've heard. I haven't seen much else about it. Obviously, it happened literally less than 12 hours ago. But yeah, I really wanted to do this because of the absolute, because again, like I said, I like to stick to society and history, the absolute like mental destruction that this is like wrought on the absolute rot in the American emotional landscape in the modern day. And, maybe, Europe is going to be like, oh, we told you so, or something like that. Even though I would agree. I would agree, but I would say that, they're not much better condition either. But the United States we're very bloodthirsty nowadays. The fact that within the hour, there were people who just said, well, he was a racist, or he was a Nazi propagandist, or he was this, or he was that. And that like is somewhat of a justification, even though if somebody if you got a clip of a trans activist who got shot like that, right? They'd be horrified, mortified, right? It would go rounds everywhere and stuff. And the opposite people, the people who said, oh, Nazi propagandists, would be like, what is wrong with you? How dare you, the humanity? I wasn't expecting it to happen so soon. I was expecting that to eventually show up in the American mind, maybe within the week, right? Maybe somewhere near the end, you'd have people be like, oh yeah, well, he was kind of a piece of shit or something like that. But not so quick as to be within the hour of him getting shot. There were people posting memes and jokes at his expense when he had literally just passed away. Like a father, he has two kids, right? And even if you didn't agree with him, he stood up for what he believed in. And then to just die like that. And I'm pretty sure his wife and children were in the crowd. I've heard that too. Again, a lot of rumors because it just happened. But I don't know why Americans nowadays you're acting like animals. You are acting like bloodthirsty animals. And you can use any excuse in the book you want. You just want to see people die. And I legitimately think that Americans nowadays, and I can't say for the rest of the world. I know there is, Japan has its own insanity. Korea has its own insanity going on. Obviously, there's the insanity in Israel. And then, of course, the French riots, whatever's going on in Russia. And the Sudanese, the War of the Three Sudans. And then, Myanmar's civil war. There's obviously a lot of chaos, pain, death, and misery. But this particularly hit home just because of the reaction to it. Most of the time when there's somebody who dies, it's somebody this high profile too, dies like a political death, like an assassination, which I actually haven't seen a whole lot of high value, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen. Maybe it has. You guys can write this in the comments if you think so, or you have examples. But I haven't seen any of the politics around the left. I haven't seen high profile left-wing leaders get shot and killed. I think there was something that happened. Was Kamala Harris's husband attacked or something? I think that happened. I can't remember. It was so briefly brushed over, which just proves that, people don't give a shit, which is horrifying also about him. But I think her husband was attacked. I can't remember I don't think he died. I think he was okay. Thank God. But, right, to just have somebody get destroyed like that, essentially, on live television. It's not really television, but it's through a live feed on a phone, and it's just blasted all over the internet. And people just be so heartless as to just not even oh, forgive your enemies, love those, bless those who curse you, kind of things Jesus tells you to do. No, not even that. Hey, this person just died. Have a bit of empathy. or hell, sympathy if you can, for this person, right, and their family. You know, everybody knows that there's going to be jokes about it in 5 years. We all know that. We made jokes about 9/11, right? And that's 3,000 people right there. You know, and we still do. We still make jokes about 9/11. I think a lot of people do. I think we all do it from time. Well, not all of us, but quite a few of us do it from time to time. And we all know that's going to happen, but it's literally been less than 12 hours, and people are celebrating his death. Like, I know our lives as Americans are miserable. I know the day-to-day struggle. I'm with you. I am not a rich, obviously, if you see the condition of my YouTube channel, I'm not a rich YouTuber. I'm not a rich person. I am one of you. I am in the slums with you. And there is no excuse, because each other is all we're supposed to have. Really, as people, as human beings, that's all we're supposed to have. We're supposed to be forgiving and loving and kind. You know, the fact that the United States, at least, I wouldn't say half, I'd say around 20-30% right now are celebrating. You're monsters. You're monsters. And you know it, and you might even defend it. You might even be like, yeah, you're right, I am. Damn straight. As long as you know it, and as long as the world knows it. But you're monsters. There is no justification. There is no, well, he did, oh, he's a Nazi, all this other, hey, no. Mm-mm. He didn't kill anyone. He did not. He wasn't even a politician, so you've effectively accomplished nothing, right, from the political perspective. He was media. He was a right-wing, like, commentator, media pundit. That's who he was. He was not a politician. He did not affect, like, the outcome of policy decisions. The elected officials did. I think it's terrible when people sit back in their chairs and laugh at the misfortune and deaths of others. But, and this goes into like our nature, I can't deny that that's kind of just how human beings have always been. It's just more public now. We can show the world who we truly are while also simultaneously hiding behind and pretending that we're still moral and good. But we're not. We're just as animalistic as the Middle Ages. And this is an evidence enough that I think that we are still the same people. I think to say it's getting out of hand is kind of like it's an understatement. But right now, I want to appeal to like everybody's humanity here. I want, it doesn't matter if I disagree or agree with Trump or Biden or Harris or the Clintons, it doesn't matter. They're human beings. And unless they're directly threatening somebody else's life, they do not deserve to die. It is not within my right to snuff out the light and life and soul and breath in somebody else. And to have that happen should be horrifying and unacceptable. George Floyd or Charlie Kirk. It's sad, but it's also deeply upsetting to an extent that people would think that this is acceptable behavior. That this is good. which is again a simplification, but I'm at a loss for words as to why people think this is acceptable behavior. But again, I know. I understand. I can't even say I'm ignorant. I can't even say, oh, I don't know why you would do that. No, I do know why you would do that. But it's not why you think you do it. You don't do it because of his politics. You hate him because of his quote-unquote politics. No, you do, but you don't. That's not the real reason. You're miserable. We're all miserable. We're all struggling, making day in and day out. And we just use politics as the scapegoat, the reason why we're acting out, lashing out. Wrath is just one of the many things we struggle with in the modern day as our reaction to how miserable our lives are now. Which is why the political violence seems to have no favorites. It's just an excuse. It's an excuse to attack people. And it's not an America-only thing. It's just now that we have been shaken to our core so much. Now that we've been hurt so much by what's been recently going on. It's kind of like everybody says, wake up, America, which America's never going to wake up, by the way. We're going to try and desperately put ourselves back to sleep and sedate ourselves over the next coming weeks. And you'll see that I'm right. You'll see people immediately try and, sweep his traumatizing death, mind you, under the rug, and people will not be talking about it. And probably, there'll be people talking about it, but there won't be many. People will go back to their lives. People are already trying to go back to their lives. Maybe because it's upsetting, maybe because it's too traumatizing. They're like, I don't want to think about that. My life's hard enough as it is. Again, I understand. Maybe because you don't care. Which is also, immensely sad. That you can't even have sympathy or empathy for people anymore. And honestly, that's the first step to us killing each other. It's just the lack of the ability to see somebody else's struggles and see other people as human beings. Again, no political sides on this whatsoever. We just seem to be unable to perceive the other side as human beings. We can't agree that they might have a certain point of view or perspective that might be correct. So our only goal is to overthrow them and destroy them and kill them and drag them through the streets, like what happened with Nepal recently. And apparently it's not just Nepal. The whole region recently, actually, has mostly been overthrown. I mean, it's not mentioned or remarked here, but this is Sri Lanka. And their government was overturned. The Bangladeshi government was overturned. Burma isn't even a functioning state anymore. It's considered a failed state. Nepal recently just started dragging their elites in the streets. And people, again, try to justify it. They're like, hey, look at this, look at that, And I understand. I understand why it's happening. I understand that you're upset and you're miserable and your lives are hard. I understand. I know. I'm here with you. I'm not some elite ivory tower person. I am right next to you. But that's not why you're mad. You're not mad because these people have money. You're not mad because you have to work hard every single day to earn your money. You're not mad because Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk has so much wealth. You're not mad that Trump closed the border. You're really not. Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't affect your life at all. It doesn't. This person does this or this person does that. It doesn't affect your life. It really doesn't. You're like, That's why you have people march in the streets. Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, for what? Maybe a month, 2 months, 6 months if you're lucky. Something big. And then everybody just forgets about it and goes right back to their lives. And African Americans suffer, and who gives a shit? I did my 2 cents. I posted some black image on Instagram. Little square. Black square, yeah. I'm with you. I'm an ally. Walks away and does nothing. Which is really dehumanizing, mind you, by the way. It's not why you're upset. You're upset because you don't have friends or relationships or communities. You don't have all the things that make life worth living, so it's miserable. Duh. And you have things like this in this region. This region actually is pretty fucked up now. I mean, I think Bhutan is okay. India, I think, is kind of okay. Obviously, there's Modi, but I think they're kind of okay. Pakistan's run by the military now. They're in an interim government. Afghanistan, obviously, is the Taliban. Bangladesh overturned their government. I don't know if that was justified or not. I'm just telling you what's happening. Right? And, like, again, excuses. Like, people are like, well, life is miserable now, or, you know, life is hard now, or, like, I understand. I know, it sucks. But killing people is only going to give you horrifying PTSD level memories when you're an elderly person. It's not going to make you feel better. What's going to make us feel better is by gaining the things we're missing in the modern world, in the modern industrial society. They spelled that wrong. Holy. They're missing an H. Sorry. Afghanistan. They're missing an H in Afghanistan. It's not going to give you meaning and purpose. It's not going to make you feel better. It's not going to make your life joyful and worth living to just go out and kill people, to acquiesce to chaos, basically. It's not. Society will correct itself. I do believe that. I think we're going to make it. I do believe that. I know that sounds like really optimistic, especially nowadays, but I think we're going to make it. I really do. I really think that a lot of the problems that we're told about are actually overblown, and we're actually doing okay right now. And I think we're going to be okay. I really think that. In the long run, at least. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of pain before then. I can't deny that. But, like, what the hell is going on here? Anyways. Like, it's not a justification of violence. There is not a justification for you to kill somebody who's not hurt anyone simply because you disagree with his politics. There isn't an excuse for that. And most Americans need to understand that. And I think most do. Again, I said 30%. That's my guess. I'm not sure. But I think about 30% are celebrating. And that's a lot of people. Like, if this were the 90s, nobody would be celebrating. Nobody, not a single soul, would be out there dancing. And for what? Because he argued with you about gun control? Like, that's the reason you think somebody deserves to die? Die. Not get punished. Not get jail time. Not get silenced or sidelined. Die. And when you really think about it, you finally become aware of how ridiculous it sounds. And to be fair, none of the world governments are doing very well right now. None of them. I actually don't know a single country that is... Well, maybe these guys are okay. I'd have to check up on them and some of my friends in these countries. But I don't know a single nation that's doing okay. The EU is struggling, of course. Ukraine barely holding above water. Russia, not as scary as we once thought. Turkey, economic downturn. Iran barely holding together. Syria, well, they just reformed. I actually think they're the only ones that are doing like, hey guys, we're actually kind of much better now. And violence is becoming more common. Places like Japan, right? Places like Japan just actually having their whole, like an entire, like prime minister just getting shot. I think he actually got shot in the same spot. Hold on, let me look it up really quick. I would use my computer, but I am displaying something right now, and there is a bunch of secrets that I don't want you guys to know. I don't need to see any of my projects I have planned for this. Let me look this up really quick. Still here. Shinzo Abe. How did I forget that? I think he got shot in the neck also. Yeah. It's the first killing, right? Which is crazy. That was only 2022. Things have just been on a violent trajectory. Ever since 2020. That really sounds strange that, like, to be fair, I think we were on this trajectory for a little bit longer, but I think COVID really accelerated our decline into this violent chaos now that we are all experiencing while we're all living through. Hold on. Yeah, neck. It hit him in the neck. Yeah, it hit Abe in the neck too. And he obviously bled out and passed away. And that's 2022. Like, that's like what, 3 years ago? It's not even that long ago. It's, and I know I'm just like giving you guys information, and I really wish I could, like, not really wish, just on a more personal note, really, like, this, guys, we're supposed to love each other. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. If you have 2 coats, give one to someone who has none. Right? Like, that's so simple. Be grateful. You're breathing. You're alive. You have no health problems. Maybe you do. But it could always be worse. Be grateful for what you have. If you're living in the United States, you've already won the demographic lottery. The vast majority of people are not born in the richest country on earth. And as a result, there are things that you can do and make happen that a lot of people can't. And even though it's getting worse here in the US, I promise you, it is way worse everywhere else in the world. Everywhere. There is not a single place that's untouched by recession right now, except the United States. And even then, it's not enough for us because, of course, you know, I'm not saying like it's happy. We can't form relationships. We can't seem to find friends. The vast majority of us stay inside. We don't want to hang out. We don't really put in effort into people anymore for whatever reason, even though we really like some of our friends, right, that we made online. We don't really put in effort. We don't give to anybody anymore. We selfishly hoard everything, and we're the more miserable as a result, clinging all of our stuff closely to our chest, and we think, what, that's going to make us happy? We know it doesn't. We know most of us want to die. I'm sure some people envy Charlie Kirk. They do. I'm sure they envy him because they're like, he is at rest, and I can't get any rest in my life whatsoever. And yes, we're at a breaking point. Things are only going to get worse. And what's worse, too, is that, you know, people wander around back and forth and they do nothing about it. They live the same way yesterday as they did today. They don't change anything about their habits to make their lives better. And they just consume more in a desperate attempt to not think so that they don't have to deal with it. Guys, that's why you're angry. That's why you're wrathful. That's why you're so mad at the world. Because there's something that you need that you're not getting. There's some like purpose and love and life and people that you don't have that you're desperately wanting. And again, this isn't for like everywhere. This is especially the West and the Far East. This area. But it's especially bad all over the world. And it's only getting worse for every single place. Every place is going to struggle with something different. You know, it's going to probably be massive inequality with places with massive slums, people moving in poverty and in more extreme poverty in places like Africa. You're going to have the rich, middle class-ish group in places like Lagos or Nairobi, but you're probably mostly going to have most Africans struggling day to day in these giant major cities and stuff. Whether or not their birth rates will plummet is yet to be seen, again, because they've actually become more religious recently, not less. Same thing with Afghanistan. Places like the Middle East literally have no idea what the future is going to be. But I can tell you what, it's probably going to be more war. I don't laugh at people's deaths. I laugh at the irony. Europe, not what it once was. Most of us and the Zoomers are not old enough to remember 2008, but I am the oldest of the Zoomers, and I can remember a little bit of 2008. And I tell you what, 2008, France and Germany, not what you see today. They are much worse today than they were yesterday. And they know it. They just don't want to admit to an American, obviously, because they want America to worry about itself, which is fair. But again, maybe you should worry about yourself. Oh. But it is really a worldwide issue of misery, struggle, pain. Like, just living is pain. Just getting out of bed every day can be a pain. I'll be honest with you, it's been for me recently. Just getting out of bed each day. It's being like, gotta put in the effort, gotta do more. I know that sounds like, being overworked, but you gotta do it. You don't really have an option. Because it's do or die. And I know that sucks, right? Like, I can't just relax like my grandparents did, like my parents did. No, unfortunately. We don't get to choose what era we're born in. And we were all born in this one, so obviously we make do with what we have. But to deny the one thing that we could still have, despite not having the money and not being in control of the politics, really, of any one of our countries, right? Despite the genocides that are happening right now. Actually, I think the Burmese one stopped recently, but you still have like places like the Uyghurs, and I think they're worried about the Darfur region also. Recently, I think a couple of thousand people were deliberately killed already in the Darfur region by the rebels against the Sudanese army, right? But like the one thing that we as people are supposed to have, that in most times in history, the wealthy envied because they couldn't trust anybody. They were these rich oligarch aristocratic classes of like the ancient Romans who didn't have the ability nor really the like mental capacity to relate to a person commonly on the ground. And all one of their friends were mostly fake. They would just smile through their teeth at each other in order to get, what they needed done and say like the Roman Senate. Or make friends on the quote-unquote international sphere when you're like one kingdom talking to another. So you gotta play nice or whatever. So they're so used to faking it, like we are nowadays, that they were actually miserable. And they would envy the peasant. The peasant's simplicity. There's actually a couple letters I think about. I can't remember if it was a Russian king or a German one. It might have been a German. Who talked about how much he wished he could just live that simple life with people he could trust surrounding him. Like we're supposed to have the relationships, the bonds. We're supposed to have each other helping each other up. And the rich who constantly lie to each other, constantly are trying to backstab each other. Like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they're not friends. They act like friends. They're not friends. They're competitors. And they know it. They're constantly smiling through their teeth at each other. We're supposed to be the ones that they envy our relationships and bonds. Yes, in its simplicity. Yes, it's not exciting. Yes, it's not amazing. They're supposed to envy that. That we can forgive. Mostly because we're more religious than they are, right? But we can forgive. We can like, I don't believe what you did was acceptable, but I let it go. And I still believe your life has value. That's something that the rich can't afford. That's something that leaders of countries, shown best by people like Stalin and Mao and Hitler, they can't afford that. Not in their dreams and visions and goals, right? Kings can't fathom that. They can't comprehend. They can't take into account that every single one of their citizens is like them, just like them. Because if they do, a lot of times, not always, there are some really good leaders in history, but most of the time, if they think about it that way, they'll lose their minds. They won't be able to send their army out at all because they'll think about how many people will die. Because they're just like them. So they have to disassociate. I think it actually was Stalin that said, a single death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic. That's true. It's the way people perceive it, really. It's more about it. How people perceive it. Not that it isn't a tragedy, but that people perceive it more as just a number. Oh yeah, it's just a million people. The point is, the way we're acting nowadays, the way that our world is going, I know we can't control it, but we can control ourselves. And we can control who we bond with and make friends with. We can control the fact that we know what we need and we can go out and get it. We can have fun again. Go out and have an adventure again. Be excited about tomorrow again. We can do that. We can. It's happened before. You've done it before. If you're thinking back into your past when you were younger. We have done it before. We used to do it all the time. Not concern ourselves with all these things that were happening constantly. And maybe I could take a little bit on my own page and book for that, but I just felt like I needed to say this just so I could redirect some of the people into peace. But we all know this isn't how we're supposed to live, and now it's time for us to do something about it. There is no acceptable form of violence like that. The only acceptable reason to end somebody else's life is if they're trying to end yours. Or they have ended another's. That's the only acceptable angle to end somebody's life like that. Because I'm not God. I can't stretch out my hand and remove somebody's life like that. It's not my power. I do have power to do that. But it's not my jurisdiction. It is not my, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not moral that I reach out and steal someone else's soul from them. I'd say, obviously, as much as possible, to demonize people who've done stuff like that. It is not acceptable to speak about somebody who is a father and a husband and a friend to many. Maybe if it isn't you pretending that Americans don't care. Trying to sell Americans that they don't care. Yeah, dude, just don't care about it. Don't care about it. You worry about yourself. Stay in your lane. You see, that's the lie that gets you. That's like the seductive, slow lie. Pretending that oh yeah, it's fine, it's whatever. You have more things to deal with or worry about. But worrying, concerning ourselves with each other is literally how we build fulfilling lives. Yes, I know. Oh, but the right won't do that for me. You're not supposed to do it because other people will do it for you. If we paid back everyone according to what they did, there would be no kindness in the world at all. Because everybody is the villain in someone's story. Everybody is the evil force or shadow in somebody else's book. Because if I tell everything about a story, even just a single story about your interactions with somebody else, and I only tell somebody the negative, they'll probably come up with conclusions that you're abusive, a narcissist, you're a terrible human being. And I don't want you to pretend to care. I don't. I want you to actually care about other people. And yes, the whole Charlie Kirk incident, yes, it's deeply sad, but more important than that, the people immediately around you. They're not just there for your end game. They're not just there for you. You're there for them. And it's time that we start looking at each other like that. To not just walk around and look for what can this person do for me. That's why relationship situations sucks. Because everybody's looking at what they can get out of that person. I know. Just yapping at this point, right? And human beings, in their anger and rage and wrath, they're going to destroy things. They are. They're going to hurt people. We've done it before. It's happened before in history. I would say that our psychological state hasn't been so isolated and destroyed, but it's not unique for our time that things are going awry and bad and wrong and evil, and that people are, getting wrathful and foaming at the mouth. The best way to think about the United States right now, or at least the West in general actually right now, is that the right and the left are like the Protestants and Catholics in the 30 Years of War in like the 1600s. That's how ridiculous. Actually, that war is the reason why the West started to become less religious with time, and now it's at an all-time low. Because of how horrifying it was. How much people would just kill each other over something stupid like, oh, you don't believe exactly the same way I do, even though we both believe in Jesus. You should die. And it's the same here. You don't believe exactly the way I do, even though we both believe in freedom. I think you should die. It's the exact same. And nobody's going to applaud you in the future for killing people like that. Nobody. In fact, if anything, they're going to look at you like you're stark raving mad. Just like we look at the Protestants and the Catholics killing each other in the 1600s, we're like, you know what? That was really stupid. It's the same thing. We're going to look back on this moment in history with all the political violence and extremes and all this other stuff and us hurting each other. If we have a war over it and if we collapse into like not anarchy but quasi-anarchy, because the National Guard and the Army, U.S. Army wouldn't let the United States fall into anarchy. It would just turn into martial law quickly. But we're going to look back on this and really regret how we treated others and other people, how we acted about how we lived our day to day, how we treated people, even, yes, people like Trump. We're going to regret how we treated people. We're going to regret how much we forgot about other people's suffering. We're going to loathe what we've become. In the future, of course, looking back. And people nowadays, you know what's funny? Like, I feel like people would watch this and they'd hear me talk and they'd say something along the lines of, well, you know, that's just fine. Whatever. I don't care. I've got enough to worry about, all this other stuff. And you know what? Maybe that's true. Maybe you are struggling a lot. And it's not been getting better, and it's been really difficult. I know. I'm not excusing what you're struggling with. I'm not saying it's nothing. I'm not saying that. I would never say that. I live here too. But it's not the answer. It's not. And I know, and you know, and we'll all know that it isn't. That our violent rage, while understandable, was unacceptable. And no amount of hate and wrath and anger, which is what you have, can destroy the chaos that's consuming us. Nothing that cannot destroy it. If it could, it would have been destroyed a long time ago. If you can figure out what I'm quoting, I'm actually paraphrasing a little bit, but if you can figure out what I'm quoting, you're a goat. Hate can't destroy it. So, remember to value life, because it could be over very quickly. I mean, Charlie Kirk was 31. 31. He has 2 kids. Little kids. They're going to grow up without a father. And you know, yesterday, he was alive. Well, he was healthy. And yet, he's gone now. Value your life. I'm not trying to scare you into, being afraid of mortality. But you're breathing. You have people who care about you, and you won't even know it. You won't even know how much people like you. Because there are people out there that see you, and just by seeing you, it made their day better. You'll never know. Just like you see people, and you're like, oh, so good to see them. Like, your day is lifted just by seeing that person. There are people who look at you the same way. Remember to crave real connections. Remember to love and forgive each other. Just as God was here for us, we must be here for other people. We must love each other, because we're all we've got. And, don't be too afraid to take a chance. Because life is on the other side of fear. Fear prevents you from doing the things that are meaningful. things that you should do. Hold on. Hold on to each other, your friends, your family, whoever you have. And if you don't have anyone, please reach out. Like, hell, reach out to me. I don't have that many viewers. There's probably nobody watching this right now. Because we need people. We're not going to make it without each other. Anyways. I love you all. Take care. And remember, rage against the dying of the light.